Hey everybody, good night. It is nighttime, but I guess the proper term would be good afternoon. It's what, October 12th, possibly? And I'm going to talk about a subject that is very, very special and touchy to me because of a lot of things. Coheed and Cambria, I'm going to be reviewing their album No World for Tomorrow. And I'm real nervous about doing Coheed reviews because they are my favorite band and they have been my favorite band and they will always be my favorite band. So it's hard for me to make something sustainable enough or personable enough or long enough to where I could talk about everything that I want to talk about, because I can talk about them for days and not bore people out of their minds. And it has to be done perfectly, because like I said, they're my favorite band. So if it's not done perfectly, then I don't really want to do it, because they deserve to be done perfectly just because of how great they are as musicians in a band. But to start, I kind of want to talk about what my goal is here. I've talked about wanting to make the videos more like my blog, where I'm talking more about the album, more about the actual music than just about them as musicians. Don't get me wrong, I'll still touch base about them as musicians and what they mean and what I feel like they are. But to help with that, I've actually made some notes that I'm going to reference and kind of jump to every so often. I'm not going to read straight from the paper. That's boring and that's stupid. I'm not going to do that. But I have a lot written down and I have a lot that I have to talk about, so we might as well just go ahead and get started with the review. I'm going to kind of just start in order. So I'm going to just kind of go from song 1 down to 13. I'm not going to review all 13 songs. That would be long and hard to do. But I'm going to review probably, I think, about 8 of the actual songs. And then I'm going to kind of touch on production value, what kind of went into making the album that I know of. So let's get started with that, I suppose. That's new, I know. Normally it's Rolling Rock, but I'm out, unfortunately, and I have not had time to make it back to the store. So I'm drinking a gin and tonic instead, which is probably my favorite mixed drink of all time. But alright, anyway, aside from that, actually, let's just get all this junk, if you want to call it junk, out of the way first before we actually start the actual review. I am wearing These Fine Gentlemen shirt. I've actually done a really popular review, thanks to them. It was popular because of them. About them, they're actually a band from Indiana that I got a hold of, or they got a hold of me on Twitter, actually, and expressed interest into the blog, so I made a trip down to middle of nowhere, which is where I'm from, but a different middle of nowhere. I think it was like about a 2-hour trip down to some place down there and watched them play and did like a little mini interview with them and talked to them. And they're real cool guys, and it's a really nice band, and they're good quality musicians, and I suggest that you guys check them out. So all that stuff aside, let's get into Coheed and Cambria. The first song that I'm going to review is No World for Tomorrow. Now, I'd love to just review No World for Tomorrow, the title track from the album, by itself, but I don't think that I could really do that, because the main reason why I want to review this song is because of its correlation with The Reaping. Now, The Reaping is the very first song off the album, and it's a nice, soft, kind of eerie-sounding acoustic song. And then you jump into this hard banger of a song with No World for Tomorrow. And the reason that I bring up the two sounds is because I think that that would be, and is, the perfect way to start this album. It kind of pulls you in with that scary feel, that weird kind of idea that they got going on that follows the comic books, which I know I've never read. I would love to, I just haven't had the chance to. I know, you can't really call me a die-hard Coheed fan, which I really am. I have a tattoo drawn up and everything that I'm going to have of them. But I just have not read the comics. I know kind of the backstory of the whole entire thing, and I've delved into it enough that I know what it's about, and I know what it is and what it represents, but I've not actually went through and read them all. But the dichotomy between those two songs and how they're so polar opposites just get you entranced into what this album is gonna be. And then it follows down to the next song that I want to talk about, which I also want to kind of do a double feature on, is Feathers and the Running Free. Now, like I've said in one of my previous blogs about the first album that Coheed released, Second Stage Turbine Blade, which has the song The Devil in Jersey City, is actually the very first song that I've actually heard from Coheed, but I never really knew who they were or what they looked like until Feathers and the Running Free. Actually, it was the Running Free and then Feathers, but I'm doing this in song order. I remember vividly about Feathers and the Running Free waking up every morning to get ready for school when I was a teenager and watching Fuse. I watched Fuse religiously. They had great music. They had the top 20 stuff. They had best of artist video shows that they did. And I always remembered seeing the Running Free video on there. And then shortly thereafter, I saw the video for Feathers. Now, I remember seeing these videos and thinking to myself that this is such off-the-wall stuff. I had never seen anything like that before. Their videos just blew me away. And not only did the videos blow me away, the actual song was so fantastically done that I couldn't help. Like, I was already a fan, obviously, but those two songs just pulled you into that whole entire concept of that album. And I couldn't ask for two better introduction songs to that album. The vocal range and the vocal powerhouse and delivery from Claudio on The Running Free just will sometimes even send goosebumps all up your body because it's such a great performance of it. And then Feathers, the video itself was just hilarious and kind of creepy and kind of cool, and all, like, some of the members were in the video. It was really cool. Now, next is still to this day one of my favorite songs that Coheed has ever released, and that's Grave Makers and Gunslingers. Now, I've been known to be a In Keeping Secrets baby child, as in, like, that album was the greatest album I think ever created, but I'm biased, obviously. Not only do I think it's the greatest album ever created, it's the greatest album that Coheed has ever came up with, and every song on that album is by far better than any other song that they've ever released. So if you could take the worst song on In Keeping Secrets, and I think it'll be better than any song that they've ever released that wasn't on In Keeping Secrets, except for Gravemakers and Gunslingers. That song is fantastic, and it is probably without a doubt in my top 5 of Coheed songs. My buddy and I went to a Coheed show in Michigan a couple of years ago, and he was familiar with Coheed, but he hadn't, like, delved into the whole entire culture like I had. So I went through every single song that they've released that I owned, and I made a playlist from bottom to top, and I ranked every song, and we listened to that whole entire playlist on my way to Michigan, because I live in Indiana, so it was kind of a long drive, so we were able to cover every song. But just everything in Gravemakers and Gunslingers, the punchiness, the grittiness, the griminess, the guitar solo, the angry at the world angst where he's cussing at everybody and screaming and blah 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 blah. It just it gets you. It boils your blood almost, and you can kind of get, I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but I feel it. And it's just it's so well written, and the quality of the musicianship, if that's a word, really comes out in that song. Now, the next song that I want to talk about is kind of, I don't know, it's not really to talk about the actual song more as it is to talk about the style of Coheed and Cambria. Now, when people kind of ask me to describe their sound if they don't know who Coheed is, I like to describe it as a singer that is a male that sounds like a female that has a great voice, and the musical style of the band is what I call, and this isn't a proper term, it's just something that I've come up with, I call it punch and run. So Radio Bye Bye is a prime example on this album anyway, and a bunch of albums have prime examples about their punch and run style. And it goes with the bass, guitar, drums, all working together. It's like a dun 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 dun. So they'll either have like 1, 2, or 3 notes where they punch it in your face with dun dun or dun dun or dun. And I'm not gonna act out every sound, but they hit you with 1 to 3 quick notes, and then they go on like a spur of like little quick high-pitched notes. So to me it sounds like punch and run. And it gives you a great delivery of musicmanship and just how their style is, and it can kind of get you into that, like pulls you into the deep factor and then gets you going because it's high pace and then whatever. And Radio Bye Bye is by far on this album the prime example of that style. And if you ever want to show anybody a song about Coheed and Cambria that kind of describes exactly who they are, that would be a song that you'd want to show them. No World for Tomorrow has a song on here called The Incomplete. And when I bought No World for Tomorrow, I already knew about Feathers and the Running Free, but that's actually the only songs that I had actually heard on the album thus far because I heard them from Fuse. And I don't know why I did it, but I gravitated to The Incomplete, which I think is actually one of the longest songs on that album. I don't know why I originally went from knowing Feathers to knowing The Running Free automatically to The Incomplete. I had no reason to go to that song, but I'm actually glad that I did. It's one of the first songs, like I said, on the album other than the 2 that I'd listened to, and it's just got this great story that goes along with everything that I think that they're trying to produce. And on top of that, the great musicness that comes with it. Musicness, that's not a freaking word. I'm really screwing this up, aren't I? The dog's underneath my feet kind of whining for some unknown reason, so I'm kind of preoccupied about trying to keep him quiet so I can finish this video. So I don't really have much, I guess, to talk about The Incomplete other than it flows with the album. It works very well, and it was one of the first song other than those 2, Feathers and the Running Free, that I'd listened to, and I was sold on the album. Which I'll talk about being sold on the album when I'm done reviewing the songs, because it does hold a relevance to the review. The last song that I want to review is actually the last song on the album, and it's called On the Brink, which is, I feel bad about it, and I really haven't given it the credit that it deserves, because it's always been a song that I skipped. And I mean, I've heard it, obviously, because I've heard the whole entire album many, many, many times, but it's always been one that I skipped because it starts very, very slow. You know, it doesn't come out and rip your face off within 2 seconds, which I know not every Coheed song does, and a lot of the best Coheed songs don't. But I just never really given it that chance to kind of embed itself into me and grow. So I always skip that song, and I actually don't know why. I think I was doing something around the house or drinking or something that was occupying my brain space other than music, and this was just playing in the background, and On the Brink came up, and I think it was actually on shuffle. I went to Spotify to Coheed and Cambria's actual page. I didn't actually even go to an album or anything, and I just clicked shuffle, and a couple of songs have played. I was preoccupied doing something else, and then this one came on, and like I said, I was preoccupied, so I didn't really hear the slow start, and then it started going. And for some reason, that day, it just sounded so different, and it sounded so great. And it's become one of my favorite songs of Coheed in general, and definitely one of my favorites on the album. The vocal delivery and the stripped downness of Claudio in this song makes it what it really deserves to be. The power that he drives through with all of his vocals, it will send kind of a weird shiver down you, because if you really enjoy it as much as I do. If you think it's absolutely garbage, you won't get the same reaction, obviously. But there's just something about stripping a song down to its bones almost and relying more on the vocals to get your message across. And it's hard to do. And when it's attempted, a lot of people don't successfully do it. And it's actually become one of my favorite songs to play. Not like play, but play on my phone or on the radio or on TV or whatever, and try to sing, because it's got such a great vocal performance that I'll never live up to ever. And I'm not here to try to convince anybody that I do live up to that vocal performance, but there's just so much feeling and power into his vocals that I like to try to emulate that and redo it myself. It's just fun to jam to when you can. So I guess that kind of wraps up my review of the songs themselves. The production value on this album is great, but I'm not such a production head that I can really tell the difference really that much. As long as it's not completely shoddy and absolutely garbage and grainy and disgusting, I'm almost always going to think that the production value is great. Now, I brought up something about selling me on this album, and I'll tell you why. I'm a very big stickler to members, and this is the first album, I believe, that forgetting his freaking first name. I know it's Josh Eppard, the old drummer and now new drummer, I guess. This is the first album without him, and it's very important to me to have core members. I kind of get attached to certain members, and I don't like to see them go. So when I saw Josh wasn't on this album, and actually I think, like I said, I'm not absolutely 100% certain, but I think Taylor Hawkins, I think is his last name, the drummer for the Foo Fighters. I actually think that he did the recording of the drums in the actual studio for this, because something about Chris Penny or whatever, which was their drummer, I think, at the time, couldn't do it because he still had obligations with the Dillinger Escape Plan and stuff. So he wasn't actually able to record it or go on the road or something like that. So I think Taylor came in and did them, which he did a fantastic job. Don't get me wrong. I love all the instruments and how they tie together in this album, but it was very, very, very sketchy for me to get back into it. But it doesn't really matter now, because they did great on that album, and Josh is now back with the lineup that I hope stays forever, with Claudio, Travis, and then I get rid of all the squeaky toys and he finds one. I stopped this video midway through on my first go through to try to prevent this, and he still found a way to give me that toy to somehow annoy the shit out of me. But anyway, you now have Claudio, Travis, Zach Cooper, which is now the new bassist, which replaced Michael Todd. Which I love Michael Todd, don't get me wrong, but you just gotta get rid of people every so often. I'm sure he's a great guy. I don't know him personally, but I much prefer Zach. And then you have Josh back on drums. So this, to me, is the greatest lineup that they have, and they seem happy. I've seen them 3 times with Zach, actually. I've never seen Coheed play with Mick Todd or Mike Todd or Michael Todd, whatever you want to call him. I've always seen him with Zach and Josh, so I was kind of spoiled, really. I've seen them 3 times recently, and I plan to see them many more times. So it's October 12th. This video probably won't be promoted or uploaded until October 13th, which is tomorrow, which is a Friday. Ooh, Friday the 13th. But just because it takes so long to upload them, and it takes a while to write the actual blog. So I hope that the notes kind of kept me on a train of thought, and it was less awkward and less weird, and I kind of kept it more professional this time. I'm trying to up my value and production as much as I can whenever I can with what I can. So tell me if you think this was a better idea, or tell me if you thought it was a piece of shit. like always. So I appreciate all your feedback. So I'm actually gonna get started on writing the actual blog. So thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you later.